long time. Nick, I know that we haven't recorded in a really hot minute, so...
It's been a minute, for sure.
Appreciate being back with you here, man, talking some hoops. I know that the season's already 5 weeks in, so we are really slacking, so we have a lot to talk about today.
Yep.
I know that there are some topics that we are going to really be cooking in today.
Yes.
So, Nick, just give us a little bit of a rundown of what we're going to go through today.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about a topic that not many people don't really want to bring up, but it's the Clippers, the current players and former players that are still bringing up the 2020 bubble. And they're still making excuses why they didn't win the championship, blah, 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 you know, whatever, right? And we'll get into that. And we're going to talk about our personal thoughts on the in-season tournament, which will be very interesting. We're going to talk about two teams that have surprised us so far early in the season, 17 games in for most teams. And finally, we're going to talk about teams that should consider blowing it up.
I think we both know who needs to be blowing it up.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think it needs much more. So we'll definitely talk about that at the end. But Nick, like you mentioned, something that's really seems to be a common trend with Clippers players, but they really need to go on podcasts and tell us how they were basically robbed of their championship that they didn't win in 2020. So I'm going to let you take the floor first, and then I'll add in whatever you haven't already gone over, but I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting because, like I said before, many Clippers players from the 2020 roster, they believe that they would have won the title that year if it wasn't for stoppage at play, not having to be in the bubble, which, you know, that year the Lakers ended up the number one overall seed in the Western Conference, and the Clippers ended up being the number 2 seed. Very interesting on, I believe it's Trae Young's The Point podcast.
Yes,
Lou Williams said the Clippers would have won the championship if COVID stoppage never happened. I think we win the championship if COVID doesn't happen. I think, this is his quotes now, I think I was in the bowl for 97 days, but day 67, I was like, let's get the bleep up out of here. You know, and there were multiple upsets and unexpected winners in the bubble, but perhaps obviously the biggest upset obviously was the Nuggets coming back from 3-1 on the Clippers. You know, and not only that they blew a 3-1 lead, but I mean, I don't know why the Clippers are making all these excuses when they were leading by an average of 15 points in all 3 of those losses when they were up 3-1. You know, and not only Lou Williams, but Marcus Morris has spoken out as well. He was on an interview with ESPN talking about how if there wasn't a bubble, you know, they would have won the championship too and stuff. But, I mean, I get it. There might be some truth to it because the Clippers, you know, they would have had home court advantage, obviously, being the number 2 seed, and they would have had home games at 5, 6, and 7 in an actual home game environment, especially playing in LA and stuff like. I get that, but at the same time, every single team, every single player, every single coaching staff had to go through the same circumstances. I didn't hear any Nuggets players complaining when they got smoked in the Western Conference Finals against the Lakers. Did you?
Nope, I didn't.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get it just because, you know, there's no home court feeling. I get there's really nobody in the crowd. But, like, at the same time, like, everyone had to go through it. It wasn't just the Clippers.
No, and you're 100% right. And to go off of what you're saying, though, Nick, I think one of the biggest things that annoys me when I hear a lot of these guys talking about the bubble is it's always about, oh, well, the bubble didn't count. Oh, well, this, like, you know, like, oh, well, we were isolated. There were no fans, right? The biggest thing about this is, I'll use a good example. Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks had the best record that year in the league. They were on pace, I believe, to win 70-plus games that year based off of where they were at. I think they had only had like 4 or 5 losses up to that point.
They would have won high 60s.
So,
yeah, at least.
You know, I didn't hear Giannis going around talking about, oh, you know, like, we were in the bubble, it wasn't going to count, we didn't really feel like it, and I just always hear this. I know Paul George has made comments about it. I know Pat Bev's made comments about it. I think actually a good one. And I get it. You know, like, people are going to always discount that ring. And I get why. You know, it was in a weird circumstance. But I think a really good quote that Jared Dudley made after they won was, he said, those boys, they don't want to be in the bubble. They don't want to be there. And I don't blame them for certain times. But the world needed to see the Clippers and Lakers. And it was unfortunate that we didn't get to see that. I think that everybody was waiting for that Western Conference Finals matchup.
Yeah. Because
the best game to start the bubble was that Lakers and Clippers game. And that really made people like, okay, you know, like, we got something to watch again. And I think everybody was waiting for that because it looked like it was it was just going to happen because, you know, the Lakers beat the Houston Rockets in 5. Yeah. The Nuggets and the Clippers, they're up 3-1. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest things that I will always remember is Paul George bricking that 3 on the side of the backboard in Game 7.
That was tough.
And look, I get that it was a weird situation, but every team, like you said, has same circumstance. Everyone was away from their family, their friends, everyday life, just to focus on hoops.
Yeah.
Like, I will tell you this, the Clippers are a great 3-point shooting team every year. They have shooters, they have guys that can score the ball. They should be doing great because a lot of guys that are good shooters, they excelled in the bubble because they were able to really focus and concentrate just on the basket because there's nothing else there except that.
Yeah.
And I will say this too, you know, the Clippers like to hold on too much to that team because they have nothing else to show for it. You've been to one Western Conference Finals appearance since they signed Kawhi Leonard and made that massive trade to get Paul George, which was 5 first-round picks, 2 draft swaps, SGA and Danilo Gallinari. I know SGA is your boy, but if that's all you have, it speaks a lot about your team. It speaks a lot about how, like, you guys really don't have a lot to stand on, and this is what you try to keep holding on to, is about when you guys were in that regular season. Let's not forget that you guys lost to the Lakers right before the shutdown. Mm-hmm. So if in a perfect world LeBron and AD stay healthy, we don't necessarily know what happens in that series.
Yeah.
And the Clippers could have still won, but we'll never know because that didn't happen. And if it wasn't for Kristaps' foot and Luka's inexperience, man, I think that they could have lost in the first round to the Mavs. They looked like there were points in that series where it looked like it was going to be tough. But
and another thing too, the Clippers, that 2020 team, they never did a good job like just adjusting.
No,
at all. Like, you know, Paul George even called out Doc Rivers after the 2020 season was over, saying, talk about his lack of adjustments, how he just wasn't confident in certain players and all that kind of stuff too. So it's like, that's how they were able to bring in Ty Lue.
That's true. Now let me ask you this real quick before we continue on. If the Clippers had won that year, do you think those guys are going to be going on there talking about that ring didn't count?
No.
So if you're you're basically
well,
missing.
And like the other teams, like the Lakers, like if the roles were reversed and the Lakers ended up losing to, you know, the Nuggets in like the conference finals and stuff, I don't think they would have been like, oh yeah, we didn't really want to be here anyways.
Because LeBron wanted to be there. He was making every point to be there. So I don't think I could have seen that. I just think that it's going to be one of those infamous teams where like they were really good and they should have won, but because of the circumstances and they chose to go to Atlantic City, get some wings, you know. Lou Will, Lemon Pepper Lou. So I think that there's going to be always that asterisk even to them where it's just like, you were a great team, but you didn't have the dedication to want to stay there.
But just like in history, though, there's always teams that win championships that when they played some teams, sometimes a player on the other team was hurt. Yeah. What if this guy was healthy? It's the same things. You know?
It's hard.
Yeah. At the same time, though, man, you're getting paid millions of dollars to go hoop. Put me in a bubble. I'll get paid $100,000. I wouldn't complain one bit being in a bubble for 90 days.
I would not complain, dude. I'm getting fed three times a day. Yeah. I'm in Disney World. I literally have I can hang out with my friends. Like we can play games. You know, like we can chill. We can just do whatever. And it's in Florida, man. It's a nice area. I would not have really been complaining. Now I get it that like a lot of these guys have families and you don't want to be away from your families because they're like your life. Mm-hmm. So I understand that. And again, I appreciate everybody that went down to the bubble, hooped, participated, because we had some of the greatest moments that I can think of in the last couple of years in the bubble. So I will always appreciate those hoops. I know we haven't really talked about the bubble too much on this podcast, but I will say that I really did appreciate when basketball came back because it gave me something to look forward to after work and actually being able to meet up with some people and watch the games because there was really nothing else to do.
It's true. Yeah.
So to move on from the Clippers, who I will say this year, we will talk about them on another episode.
That's true.
But I want to talk about the in-season tournament
Uh-huh.
and what you've thought so far about it. I know that we're now off the group stage. Now we're going into the elimination round. So what do you think, Nick? How have you felt about the tournament? Anything that you really liked about it, or do you just feel like it's kind of eh?
Well, it's a very interesting concept because obviously they're trying to copy what soccer does. Especially those teams in Europe that do like those Euro.
Yeah.
I'm not really familiar with it with soccer that much, so I know I have a lot of friends that are not only basketball fans but soccer fans as well. They love this in-season tournament because it just reminds them of like that soccer kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And I understand why the NBA did it. They're trying to make these regular season games more, watchable. They're trying to get people more engaged during the regular season, not just postseason play. I think it's kind of interesting that I feel like fans are more engaged in the in-season tournament than the players itself.
That's true.
Feel like
that's true.
Like I understand, they're going to be giving players. There's a cash reward of like $500,000
for each player,
and stuff like that. But even Marcus Smart, I think we just talked about it. He literally said like, it's just a regular season game. He doesn't really care.
Yeah,
about the tournament.
They're
so
treating
much.
it the same.
And even Shaq on TNT goes, they're playing for the money. They're not playing for the trophy.
No, they don't give a shit about that trophy. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, that trophy's not going to mean anything because everybody cares about the Larry O'Brien
Unless if they made it interesting, if they really want these players to really care about the in-season tournament, how about next year, whatever team wins the in-season tournament should automatically qualify for postseason play. Ooh. I guaranteed a lot of teams, especially a lot of these teams that are not playing so well, I think they would go hard every single game. And all the teams that are playing like good or even like phenomenal, I think they would want to play really well in the in-season tournament to secure a spot. Because you don't know. Let's say
one injury
happens. It could be Zion wins it. It could be like if the Bucks ended up winning it and Giannis was out for 3-4 months span, the Bucks could give that player extra rest and hey, we already qualified for the postseason.
No, that's true. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, that's a really good. That's a really good point. I think that would definitely entice teams that are a little bit more on the bottom tier. Top tier teams, I think it'll entice them. I think it would be more though,
like in the playing.
Yeah, like an older team too. Might want to be more enticed by that because then they don't have to play their guys too many minutes during the regular season, and then they're like, oh hey, we have this automatic spot into the playoffs. Hey, let's just get there.
Because what can happen too? For example, let's say a team that won the play-in tournament was a 9 seed.
Sure.
That would have been playing in the play-in. Now that 10 seed can move up to 9, and then the 11th spot has something to play for because now they can move up to the 10th spot and they're in.
That's true. That is true. I think it's a good point. I think you need to call out him Silver, man. I think you need to tell him like, hey man, I got a good idea for your tournament.
Yeah.
I think more players will buy into it.
Yeah.
I'm indifferent about the in-season tournament. I think that it's a cool concept, and like you've mentioned, it does remind me of like the ones that they do in soccer. I know like a lot of people probably were confused if they don't like even like follow like I know a lot of people don't follow MLS, but like when like Miami International like won that like in-season cup, but like they're not a good team. Like they had a terrible record. Like they didn't make the actual playoffs, but they won that cup.
Yeah, but they got Messi too.
Yeah,
though.
Yeah, they also I mean that was another thing, but it was a cool thing to see because it's like wow, Messi like literally comes here, they win a cup.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe in the future, if this in-season tournament continues to be successful and they continue to do it every year, maybe that trophy becomes a little bit more valuable. But right now, I don't think it's going to really mean much.
Nope. Yeah.
And I think, to be honest with you, it's going to be one of the teams that we already expect to be in the NBA Finals that will likely make it. I know the Nuggets didn't make it, but to be fair, they're also missing some guys. So like I wasn't so like that's fair. I believe it's the Lakers, the Suns. It's like that 1-4 matchup.
Yeah.
And then it's the Kings, and then I'm forgetting the other team that's playing on the one group side because I know it's the Knicks and Celtics, and then the Bucks and. I
can't think right now either.
Man, I'm gonna have to look this up.
Yeah. So honestly, like in general, I think they're just playing. The players are playing for the cash. Not only that, honestly, I think they're playing to get a trip to Vegas in December because they don't go to Vegas during the NBA season because there's no team in Las Vegas.
And I also think too is that because they're really trying to push a team for Vegas. I mean, look, like every other team. Yeah. Okay, So it's the Kings and Pelicans, and then the Pacers and Celtics, and the Knicks and Bucks. So there are going to be good games. Like, I actually am really hyped to watch that Pacers and Celtics game. My boy Tyrese Halliburton needs to show the world again that he is a monster
right now. They're putting up points in Indiana right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do think, though, it's also to push Vegas. Vegas is getting the Athletics in a couple years. They're building a stadium. Obviously, they have the Raiders right now. They have the Vegas Knights.
Yeah, they got the WNBA team.
Yeah, they have the Las Vegas Aces that just won another championship. And then
they just won in hockey, too, right, recently?
The Knights, I believe they did win a year ago, I think. And if you also think about it too, they just built an F1 formula racetrack there. So Vegas is really starting to build itself up. It's not just a place to gamble anymore. It's becoming a sports hub and an entertainment area for people to go watch sports games, which I think is really dope. And I think that definitely when the Vegas team comes, that'll be very interesting to see how, because we haven't really seen a reorganization of the NBA in a while, so it'll be interesting to see what teams keep or let certain players go, because it'll go into this expansion draft. So you have to allow, I think that's 2 players on your team, and there's gonna be 2 teams they're gonna introduce, not just 1 but 2. Yeah. So do the Seattle Supersonics come back? I mean, that could be one. I don't really know another one that has lost a basketball team or that would want a basketball team, depending on the market. But I think Seattle makes sense. Yeah. So
they love their Sonics out there, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, they wanted to move the Kings back.
They had some good teams too. They really did.
Dude, when they had Gary Payton, Sean Kemp, they had
Ray Allen was playing there with Sharp Lewis when he was in his bag.
And when baby Kevin Durant was drafted into the league, he played a year
too, right?
Yes. Right when they were moving to OKC. But yes, he was drafted technically when they were still the Supersonics, but they were about to be reorganized to the OKC Thunder. So I think that I think the courts are cool. I think that when you see them in person, though, or on TV, they look a little weird. Yeah. But the pictures, they look great. I don't know what you thought about the Bulls one, but I did feel it was a little weird with the red.
Too much red.
That's the only thing I didn't like about it. Yeah. I thought everything else was cool about it. Some of them were really nice, where it was more simplistic, but the trophy is a cool aspect that you added to it. But why can't they do this for the finals?
They used to.
Why don't they bring that back?
I don't know.
I don't want to see the Clorox logo and some stupid YouTube sign. I want to see the NBA Finals trophy right there.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I think that with time, I think the in-season tournament will get better. And yeah, I really
feel like the playing tournament's starting to grow a little bit now. So I feel like that's what they're trying to aim for. Hopefully in a couple of years.
Yeah.
In-season tournament will.
I think it's going to be kind of what the All-Star game. How do you find ways to continue to get guys to want to be interested and want to play? Because, like you said perfectly, Marcus Smart doesn't care. I know there's a bunch of guys that don't care. I know.
I'm not gonna lie to you. $500,000. It might be worth a lot to the players that are not really playing that much, or either on rookie contracts.
Oh yeah,
they're on 1 year maybe.
It makes more sense for them.
It makes more sense for them. But guys that are getting an absolute bag, I'm sorry, but $500,000 to them is literally $500.
I mean, for the guy like Jaylen Brown, who just signed a massive contract.
What's $500,000?
You think he really cares right now? He's making $65 million a year. Who cares?
It's nuts.
Homie's like, bro, that's $5 for me. I don't care. Yeah. But I think something that maybe we can also rebrand too is moving forward with the podcast. Mm-hmm. When we talk about surprise teams, our ABNF picks or something like that. I think we try to always cover teams that might not always get the media attention, or maybe they get talked about by other podcasts or smaller media platforms. But yeah, not by ESPN, not by Fox. Those are where we're usually considering mainstream media or big athletes that have these podcasts. They don't talk about them. They just talk about the mainstream guys, right? And Nick, I'll let you go first, but I want to know what has been a surprise team for you so far this year. Yeah. Give me your take on it, and however you want to go about it.
Yeah, sure. So I have one team in the Eastern Conference and one team in the Western Conference.
Okay,
so my Eastern Conference team Alex, I think you mentioned them on last episode that we did. It's the Orlando Magic.
I also
The
have
Orlando
them
Magic are 12-5. They're third in the Eastern Conference right now. They're on a currently 7-game winning streak. They're 7-2 at home, 5-3 on the road. They have 6 players averaging 10 or more points per game. You have Paolo Banchero just under 20 points per game. Franz Wagner's averaging just under 20 points a game. You got Cole Anthony is really starting to grow like in the NBA now. He's averaging about 15. He's 15 a game. The other Wagner brother's averaging 12.5. Jalen Suggs is averaging almost 12.5. Markelle Fultz has only played 5 games, but he's averaging about 11 points per game. And Wendell Carter Jr. just under 10 points a game, but also has only played 5 games. But when you really look at this team, the majority of their best players have stayed healthy. Their top 4 scorers have played in all games, 17 games this year. And Jalen Suggs is playing 16. And they're doing this without Wendell Carter Jr. and Markelle Fultz. Both have only played 5 games this year. So when they come back, this team, man, they actually have a lot of depth. If you really dive deep into their roster, fully healthy, they start Markelle Fultz, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter Jr. It's a pretty good young starting 5. A lot of ascending players, if you ask me. And their bench, they got some veterans on their bench, man. Cole Anthony's balling this year. Gary Harris is on this team. Joe Ingles is on this team. Jonathan Isaac's on this team. The other Wagner brother. They got a young guard in Anthony Black. So they got a lot of depth on this team. They're second in the NBA in steals. They almost get 10 steals a game too as well. And they're fifth in the NBA in opposing points per game. They're only allowing 107 points per game too. So they are playing defense at a high level right now. And this Magic team's playing with a ton of confidence. They're still a massive underdog to a lot of people out there because they're still not really getting talked about, but they're going to get the recognition that they deserve on this podcast because they are playing phenomenal basketball right now.
And I couldn't agree with you more, Nick, because the Orlando Magic were also my Eastern Conference team that I picked, and I think you perfectly put it together is that they are a deep team.
Yeah.
When you look top to bottom with this team, I think that they do have the potential to play 10 guys, on any given night.
Yeah.
I think a big thing that they have is that Vooch trade really helped them a lot. Yeah. It gave them some youth. Obviously, Wendell Carter Jr. I know he wasn't a fan favorite in Chicago, but he's honestly his plus minus is way better than Vooch.
Why does he kill the Bulls every time he plays this, bro?
Because he
goes off.
Dude, it's revenge. It's revenge every time, man. I mean, Mo Wagner was part of that trade too because he ended up being one of the draft picks. And Moritz Wagner he's a solid big man that can play. His brother Franz is the better brother between the two of them.
Yes.
But again, you have those guys.
Jonathan Franz? He was part of that trade, right? Eventually.
Franz, I don't.
And Wendell Carter, no.
It was Mo.
Mo
Wagner, but Franz Wagner was the actual Magic pick. I believe, though, that they also had our pick that year as well.
Yeah.
With that, so that's what ended up happening.
Yeah.
And somebody who we really haven't seen since the bubble is Jonathan Isaac.
Yeah.
And that's a guy I know you mentioned. His defense, dude, he's a lockdown defender when he's healthy.
Yeah.
And once Markelle Fultz comes back healthy, I think if they can stay healthy, this team really does have a chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're second in defensive rating in the NBA right now.
They are. I like the balance of this team. They got most of their players are young, but they added some veterans that had some success, not only in their individual career, but being on teams that have made some runs in the postseason. Joe Ingles with Utah was on a lot of those Utah teams. Those were some good teams back then. Not too long ago, actually. Gary Harris was making it to the playoffs with the Denver Nuggets, too. So they added some veterans on this team, too. And, I'm excited for this team moving forward, man. I really am. And Paolo Banchero, I think he's going to be an all-star this year.
I mean, he's doing really well, man. He leads the team actually in all 3 categories. Again, like you said, they're a very balanced team, but he's averaging 19 points a game, or actually almost 20. Yeah. 6.5 rebounds, 4.6 assists. He's shooting almost at 50% from the field, and he's shooting 43% from 3. And that's with attempting about 3 to 4 threes a game. So it's not like he's only taking 1.
Yeah.
He's taking about 3 to 4. Yeah. So I think he definitely has the ability to, again, be the best player on that team. I mean, that's why they drafted him with the number 1 overall pick. And ended
up being the right pick.
And I do want to add, too, they have beaten some pretty good teams. Like, they did beat Denver. They whooped Boston 113-96.
Yeah.
They beat Milwaukee 112-97. And then they beat the Lakers by 19 after losing by 3 the day before Halloween. Yeah. So it's not like they're just beating up on bad teams. I know they beat the Bulls twice, but they do have some,
very good wins.
So I'm very curious to see where they're going to be at midseason. We might be talking about them again at that point.
I'm very curious to see if they'll end up making a move at the deadline or they're just going to keep this young core intact.
I mean, I think that you have a couple pieces you might be able to trade because, again, you have so many big men that that's the only one where it starts becoming like the Sixers situation when they had Embiid, Noel, Okafor.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's true.
You know, and that's going to be, what do you do then? So that would be my only thing is like, how do you figure it out? Do you keep two of those guys and get rid of one of them, see what you can get back? Because I think right now what they do need is like a true like small, maybe like a true like shooting guard, small forward type player. Yeah. I think that would help elevate them because I think they have the point guard down, but I would probably say that would be maybe a position where they could, get better. I think the offense is the only thing that scares me a little bit. They're
don't score many points.
Yeah, they're a little bit on the bottom in 3-point shooting and the 19th in offense, so they're kind of teetering towards the bottom end. So can they continue this consistency? That's true. That's going to be the other thing.
They need a guard bucket getter.
Yeah.
Because teams are going to start keying in on Paolo, and if they keep going, they end up making the playoffs and stuff, which nobody expected. That's why they were surprised. I didn't think they were going to be a top.
I think
6 team in the East, or maybe 9th or 10th, maybe.
I really downplayed them, and I was
sure.
I know that a friend of mine was talking about them in one of our group chats, and I thought about it more, and I looked into it, and I was like, you know what? That's fair. I was like, you know what? The Magic actually are pretty solid. Let's see what they could do. And when they started really taking off, and they like put on a winning streak. I think it was when they beat the Celtics too. I was like, okay, this team is actually like legitly like they're not playing around. Yeah. So, I definitely think we're going to be talking more Orlando this year. So Nick, I want to hear, what is that second team that you are going to put?
So the Western Conference, it's the number 1 overall seed, the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're 13-4. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. They're 8-1 at home. They're 5-3 on the road, but they're 9-2 in conference play. So they're taking care of the Western Conference pretty well right now. They have 5 players averaging 10 or more points per game. You have Anthony Edwards at 26.2, Karl Anthony Towns at 21.2, Rudy Gobert averaging 12.4, Naz Reid is 12.4, Mike Conley is 10.3 points per game. But all 5 players, you know what they have in common? They've all played in every single game this year so far. They've all played in all 17 games. They're 3rd in the NBA in opposing points per game. They're only giving up 106.2 points per game. They're 6th in the NBA in field goal percentage, shooting over 48% as a team. And this is also another team that's got some depth on this team that nobody really wants to talk about. I like their starting 5 when healthy. Mike Conley running the point, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert. Then their bench, Naz Reid, Kyle Anderson, Nickel, Alexander Walker, Shake Milton, and Troy Brown Jr. That's their main players that are going to be playing in every single game. I think in the postseason, I don't think Troy Brown's going to be seeing minutes, but I think Shake Milton and I think they'll be seeing minutes. And
I think Naz Reid definitely will.
Yeah, I like this team.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you right now, and I will say this: we did not come together to share notes before. This is the first time we're seeing our notes.
Yeah.
But I also did take the Timberwolves as my other team. Like you said, first in conference, the 9-2 in conference play. Yeah. Anthony Edwards, I think we've talked about him so many times, but he's emerged as a top player in the league.
I did say he was going to make All-NBA before
this season. You did. And I definitely do not see that not happen. I cannot see in any universe that's not going to happen as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah.
So I think another thing you talked about too was health. And Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns both have missed a significant amount of time last year. And that was when Naz Reid really started to elevate his game, which is why we're talking about him more this year. And he got that contract back up because of how important he was for the Wolves last year. But let's not forget, Jaden McDaniels being healthy is really important because he's their best perimeter defender.
He's been out too.
And he punched his hand and broke it because he was pissed. And I will also want to add to, I think that Mike Conley fits the system a lot better than D'Angelo Russell did. And I think that's another thing that we're seeing is a guy that actually is not going to be selfish with the ball, take stupid shots, because you see night to night D'Lo is going to do what D'Lo wants.
Yep.
And that's not something Mike Conley does. He's meticulous. He thinks about it. He's a good strategizer, and then he's going to run the offense the way the coach wants it to be.
Yep.
And I think another thing too, they're top 10 in 3-point shooting at 37.1%.
Yep.
And I don't think people really gave, and I know I didn't myself. The Wolves' offseason moves were not anything amazing. I think it's just that we forgot this team was hurt a lot last year.
Yeah.
And while they did make a deadline trade, I think that was actually one of the better trades they decided to make.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they're beating teams that are good. They beat Denver. They beat Boston. They beat Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Golden State twice. And they also just beat OKC not too long ago. I actually think it was last night they beat them.
Yeah.
106-103. So they're beating good teams.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just bad teams and they're on an easy part of their schedule. They're legit, man. I think they're going to be a top. Yeah. I think they could be a top seed. It might be a little too early.
Personally, though, I think they will make the playoffs. Yeah. And when it comes to postseason play, yes, you are going to start Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, but I think at some point in these games, you can't have both of them on the floor at the same time. When you play against these good teams, good guard play, you can't keep putting Rudy Gobert on an island or Karl-Anthony Towns on an island because they're just going to pick apart one or the other, especially if they're both on the floor. And I just think I just don't think it's going to work in the postseason with this current starting five. Obviously, it's going to be the starting five.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to like second quarters, third quarters.
Do you think you're going to see more Naz Reid?
Yes. Exactly. Naz Reid has to see more minutes in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is Rudy Gobert has no offensive game. I think that's one of the biggest things that gets him off the court in the playoffs is because, like you said, he stands on an island because people are going to always switch on to him because he's going to be
There's a lot of high-volume scoring teams in the West that can light you up at any given point.
And you know there's going to be teams that are going to kill them in the pick and roll too because of that situation. Mm-hmm. And I want to say that it's going to just be another like pointer that while I like how they look, I think the thing that we're going to probably be harping on in April and May is Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns do not work together as a pair. If you want to win a championship.
Kind of like Westbrook in the Harden situation. They finally made the move, obviously, because Russell Westbrook actually said, hey, I need to be coming off the bench. I think it's going to be one of those scenarios at some point, and you will see it as the season goes along, that these two they just don't pair well together, in my opinion. They just don't. No,
I think Karl-Anthony Towns, I think Rudy Gobert helps,
defensively,
he helps hide like the defensive deficiencies that Cat has, but at the same time is that Cat's offensive game is also kind of overshadowing what Rudy really does. Rudy's kind of the type of guy that's going to get you some putbacks, some off the glass points. That's really going to be his game. He doesn't have a post game. I think that's a big thing. Karl-Anthony Towns is also just Karl-Anthony Towns has been with the Wolves since 2015, and one of the things that I've noticed is that no matter what iteration of the Wolves that have made the playoffs, he has never been the best player. It's always been somebody else, whether it was Jimmy Butler or now Anthony Edwards. He was supposed to be the franchise guy, and he never has been. And I think that's one of the things. He's been the franchise guy, but what has that led them to? Nothing.
That's why they got like Jimmy Butler and stuff like that.
And that's what it's continued to be. Obviously, like when they had Andrew Wiggins too, they weren't really doing much. And then as soon as they drafted Ant Edwards, and then they got some like good pieces as well around it, they were able to make the playoffs again. So I don't know. To me, it just feels like we're going to continue to talk about Cat. I feel like Cat's an underrated player in certain regards. We don't talk about him enough.
He's overrated in certain regards.
Yeah, in certain regards, you could also say, oh, he's overrated. He's not really that good. But he's a skilled offensive player. Just if you can't play defense and you're on a team that you need to have another guy that can play defense, I hate to say it, but...
Yeah, when you talk about his shooting ability, too, you could really make the argument that he's like the fourth most talented big in the NBA, talent-wise.
Yeah, because he has the ability. He also can handle the ball.
Because you have Jokic, Embiid, AD.
Yeah.
After those three, I think Karl-Anthony Towns is probably the most talented big.
Yeah. Because, he can
do everything offensively, though. He doesn't really have a flaw.
No, he can. And that's the thing is if you can handle the ball as a big man, like that helps you a lot. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Cap, man. But I think another topic that definitely we need to talk about is what team should consider blowing it up. Nick.
Yeah.
I know it has been a very rough year for Chicago fans.
Oh, dude, you're going to get me going.
We are a basketball podcast, but I'm going to just put this point real quick. Obviously, with the White Sox, that's been a whole shit show. Mm-hmm. We know what's been going on with the Bears. Yep. And, I really did not like that they won. I think that screws our draft capital up a little bit, personally.
Yeah.
Hate to say it. And then obviously, like, the Hawks are rebuilding, but obviously what the
kind of regards the most exciting thing in Chicago right now.
Yeah. And
that's not even a debate.
And if the Cubs get Ohtani, then that'll be another big thing. But until that happens, we really got nothing, and the Bulls blow chunks. All right, Nick.
You want me to give some stats before you go off?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, obviously, the Bulls, we all know they're 5-14. They're 13th in the Eastern Conference. Look at all these stats I'm about to throw at you. You're going to be like, oh, God. They're 28th in the NBA points per game at 106.2. They're 27th in the NBA in rebounds per game, only 40.7. They're 27th in the NBA in field goal percentage at 44.7. Yep. You're 29th in the NBA in assists per game at 21.9. You're 21st in the NBA in threes made per game, only making 11.5 a game. You're 24th in the NBA in made free throws per game at 16. You're 28th in the NBA in true shooting percentage at 54.4. Every stat I just laid out, it's 20th or worse.
Yeah.
And not only that, I tried to find something that the Bulls as a team were good at. I literally couldn't find anything.
Oh, there is nothing they're good at. Just losing by high margins. That's what they're good at doing right now. They're currently, Nick, on a 5-game losing streak. They've been blown out in each game by a margin of at least 12 points or more. And then the latest one was the one last night against the Celtics, which...
They didn't even try.
Dude, I just need to say this. Like, I've defended Zach. I know that we've talked about him, and I know I've said, like, hey, like, let's not trade him. Like, let's see what happens. Mm-hmm. But my man looks checked out. I mean, he's not even playing up to his standards. Bro, he had 2 points last night, 4 assists, 2 rebounds. He looked lazy on defense. This one play I saw on Twitter, because I didn't watch the game. I'm just like, I'm done. I cannot watch them right now.
Yeah, I can't watch them.
There is one particular play where you see Zach get screened, and Vooch, who's supposed to pick up on help on the shooter, he watches the shot go up, and he has no regard. He does not give a shit. I mean, granted, the Bulls are already down 18, but you have to still play.
Yeah.
And one of the other things, too, is I'm going to put one positive here since we talked very negative about them. The one lone two bright spots they've had. Kobe White has actually been good this year. As much as I think he's one of the only guys you could say on this team you would be okay with keeping right now.
Yes.
13.4 points per game, 2.9 rebounds per game, 4.1 assists per game. And that's with 3 other guys that need the ball a lot in their hands.
His stats would skyrocket if they got rid of 2 of them.
Yeah. And Alex Caruso has been the only other guy on that team that looks like he wants to play on both ends of the floor. Because if you don't even have Caruso, man, some of these games would probably be even worse than what they already are.
Worse.
And he's playing in the starting lineup. As a power forward, dude, why are you playing as a power forward? You are not that big. A lot of it comes down to this. The Vooch and DeMar trades back in 2021 have really hampered us. We really have no young assets on our team. Mo Wagner, like we talked about earlier, he could have been a Bull. I know that Michael Carter, Jr. was not one of the most popular guys on the Bulls, but if he could have developed into what he's doing in Orlando up here, he could still be on the team. We let go of Laurie. I know he was coming off a bad season. This is the one that always kills me.
I got something to say about that.
This one kills me, man. We passed on Tyrese Halliburton, who's having a career year. He's the best point guard in the league right now. I can't even argue that. All to draft, Nick, the 6th man of the year in the ACC.
Yeah.
Patrick Williams.
Even starting college, how are you a top 5 pick in the first place? I don't think that's... If somebody could please comment on this, find me another draft that somebody went in the top 5 that played in college basketball. I'm not talking about overseas. I'm talking about college basketball that didn't even start on their team. I I can't recall. Do you want? I really can't recall.
I don't have one for you, man.
And going back on kind of what you said a little bit about the Bulls, the issue is they kind of do have young talent actually, but the issue is the three take up so much, and they don't give these other players opportunity to really shine. I mean, Dylan Terry, you draft this guy in the first round. When is this guy going to actually be in the every game rotation? Right? Kobe White, he's having a good year, but how can he reach his full potential if you got DeMar, Zach, and Vooch are going to take up 65% of the team shots when all three of them are on the floor together in the starting lineup? And I know Patrick Williams has had a really, really rough year. He really has. And he's starting to piss me off as a Bulls fan. A lot of donuts this year from him. Kind of like Max Strus in the finals.
Yep.
But at the same time, how could he have opportunities to blossom when he's in the starting lineup and he's just sitting in the corner? How do you want a guy to improve on his game when teams are setting up their defenses and we're in our half-court offense and a dude's just sitting in the corner? What is he supposed to do? Right? Zach and DeMar, they have the ball a lot, and then they're trying to find Vooch in the paint and stuff. Vooch, Bulls fans, I'm sorry, but Vooch has actually had a good year. Really go look at his stats. He really has. I know a lot of Bulls fans, when it comes to Zach, DeMar, and Vooch, when you really have arguments with a lot of Bulls fans, they say Vooch is the number one to blame. You want me to be real? Zach is the number one to blame.
I'd blame Zach
right now. I'm sorry, you signed that 4-year, $15 million contract extension.
Yeah.
You're playing at a borderline all-starish level. I'm sorry, my guy. If we paid you to be not a superstar. We know Zach LaVine will never be a superstar. We're paying you starish money.
Yeah.
Right? And you're not even, I don't even think he's going to be an all-star this year. And this man is soaking up all this money right now.
I don't think so either.
And I'm sorry. I love DeMar DeRozan. I love what he's about. I love his mid-range game and stuff. He's declining more than we realize, Bulls fans. I'm sorry. If I'm in the front office, you do not give this man the 4-year, $153 million. Don't let him walk either. At least get something from him. I listed 4 players that the Bulls should trade. Zach LaVine needs to get traded.
Oh, yeah.
The Lakers have popped up a lot. And at least according to the reports, the Bulls front office is demanding that Austin Reeves has to be in every trade scenario, which I completely 100% agree with.
He needs to.
They at least got that right.
Yeah.
Because if they do a trade and Austin Reeves ain't in it, I'm going to flip out.
Yeah, I'm not taking a package that centers around D'Angelo Russell, man. That's not happening.
And then number 2, just like I said, man, DeMar is declining more than we realize, Bulls fans. I'm sorry. I love DeMar DeRozan. I really do. That first year, he was absolutely lights out, phenomenal. He was literally in the MVP conversation, had a phenomenal year. I think DeMar, you have to get something from him. I don't know what his value is, but you have to. Patrick Williams has got to go. I think he needs a new situation. I think this Chicago environment has really kind of gotten to him. I don't think he's ever going to be confident playing in this city again, to be honest with you. I really think he's got to move. And this last player, I hate to say it, he's my favorite Bull right now. But if you could get a first-round pick out for Alex Caruso, a guy that's not really an offensive guy, I know he's a great defensive player, you have to make the move. I hate to say it. I love me some Alex Caruso. Every team in the NBA would want a player like Alex Caruso. He's a great talent. He's improving offensively every single year. Obviously one of the best guard defenders in the league. But if you can get a first-round pick out of him, just to get more draft capital, because just like you brought the 2 trades with DeMar and Vooch, we really don't have draft capital either. No. So the Bulls are literally stuck right now. So if you have to trade Caruso just to get a first-round pick, you have no choice but to do it.
And that's the thing, too, that like I was going to continue to go with, talking about like trades. And I think you brought up great points about each one, I don't hate Vooch. I will say that Vooch's liability on defense has always been something that I think has been why Bulls fans will go after him. But he's consistent in his numbers. I think each year he's been on the Bulls, his stats have literally mimicked themselves. So it's not, his production is there. It's just that, again, when you're the third option on a team, you're going to be the fall guy a lot of times. And a lot of people are not going to blame Zach. I think more people now are starting to blame Zach because of how he's acted out too after games.
DeMar's acted out too. We saw what he did a couple nights ago.
Yeah, he tore his jersey, tore the towel. I mean, I'll say this: DeMar is 34 years old, and I think that's where people have to start realizing. When we got him, he was 32. He's 34 right now. Mm-hmm. He's on the decline. Not everybody can be LeBron James, unfortunately. I wish that was possible. And not to say that DeMar can't still be a serviceable player in his later 30s.
He's still a good talent, man.
Yeah. Like, there are guys that can still keep going. I mean, we're seeing a lot more players beating Father Time now than before.
Yeah.
So, I would first, and I know that this is something else that had been going on in reports, AK wants to trade LaVine first, see what the team looks like after that before he starts trading anybody else. I want to see what teams are willing to actually offer for LaVine. Try to take the best offer possible. If it is the Lakers is the best offer possible, then do it.
Austin Reeves has been the deal.
Take that one. If the Knicks are willing to go back in for a trade, hey, I will take your young guys. We want some draft capital. You have a bunch of it. Please give some of that to us.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Give us at least 2 guys that we can get back in return. I don't, as much as I'd love to have a guy like RJ Barrett, I know they're not going to trade him.
Oh, no.
But if I can have Emmanuel Quickly and Quinton Grimes, I'll take that trade.
And 2 firsts.
Yeah, I'll take that trade.
And just a filler, just a filler, just to get more
if they gave
cap
us
space for the Bulls going into the next offseason.
Yeah, if they give us Evan Fournier just to get rid of the cap, screw it.
I'll take the cap, no problem.
We'll take it because the thing is, we're not making the playoffs this year. So
as Bulls fans, even before the season, even last year's trade deadline, they should have blown it up then. Because really, when you really dive deep into it, it's DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine could be a first or second best option on a championship level team right now. Be honest.
I would say DeMar would be a borderline 2-3 option on a championship team. I'm being realistic. They cannot be the 1-2. The Bulls truly, and this is why I said I'd be curious to see if they kept DeMar, get rid of Zach, how the team looks after that.
Yeah.
Because I think that it opens up somebody like Kobe White to have more opportunities, but whoever else you get, if you get some shooters out of that trade, that opens up the floor a lot more because we are terrible at shooting the 3.
It's bad. It's really bad.
We have nobody because Lonzo Ball was that consistent 3-point shooter that we haven't had since the beginning of 2022. That's the issue there.
I'm sorry, too. That Torrey Craig sign was a complete joke.
I mean, we could have had Grant Williams, but,
And hopefully when they get rid of somebody, hopefully Patrick Williams can play better to honestly increase his trade stock.
Yeah, he's not going to be a Bull after this year. I wouldn't even re-sign him for a minimum. I just feel like the biggest issue with him is you can tell that he has no confidence in his game right now. He passed up on a wide open shot.
Yep.
And he tried to go in. And you can just, there's just some things where players just need a new scenery.
Yeah.
And that's what he needs.
He needs it bad.
And I know that we'll probably, if he ends up being solid on another team, people are going to criticize front office again. Come on, guys. This has been going on since the early 2000s. Do you really think it was going to change? I mean, we had Tyson Chandler at one point. We had Ron Artest. We had Jamal Crawford. This is nothing new. It didn't just happen in the last 5 years.
What would have been very interesting is if we never got rid of Lauri Markkanen, we drafted Tyrese Haliburton. Those two would have been the cornerstones of this franchise right now. How would the team look right now?
I made a mock lineup. So they could have had a lineup of Haliburton, Levine, Lauri, Mo Wagner, and MCJ if they had done it. And I'll say right now, it's better than what they got right now.
That is a fact. I couldn't agree more to that. The Bulls, oh man, it sucks having to be so depressed about our team because obviously people that watch this, podcast know that we're huge Bulls fans and it's just so depressing right now at the moment. And hopefully they do make some moves soon, and hopefully they're not stuck in purgatory. And they at least have some sense of direction that they actually plan on going in instead of just sitting in the middle thinking that this is going to eventually work when it's not.
And I think, like you said to your point, I think once we actually get some competency with the front office and they actually know what they're doing, maybe things will change.
Yeah.
But until then, we're going to continue to see this. Look, I know that not everybody's going to care to listen to the Bulls, but even if we didn't want to talk about the Bulls, we have to talk about the Bulls because there's no other team in the league right now that needs to blow it up because everybody else is. Okay, let's hear the other team. What team?
Surprised.
What team is it?
I think the Golden State Warriors have to blow it up.
Okay. That's an interesting one.
They're 8-10, 10 in the Western Conference. Obviously, they're 2-8 in their last 10 games. I just think the Western Conference right now is too deep for this current team to actually do something. Because I could lay out a list of teams right now that I think would beat the Warriors in the 7-game series. Minnesota would beat them in the 7-game series. Denver Nuggets would beat them. Dallas Mavericks would beat them.
Yep.
The Phoenix Suns would beat them.
Yep.
OKC would beat them.
Yep.
Sacramento would beat them. The Lakers would beat them.
Mm-hmm.
And New Orleans would beat them.
Oh, New Orleans would definitely beat them.
And there's two questionable teams you could really, The Rockets might have a shot. The only reason why they're 8-7 is because they're literally 0-6 on the road. They haven't won a road game yet. Eventually, they're gonna start winning some road games. They play lights out at home, and the Rockets have a better record. They got a pretty solid team, and I know the Clippers have looked pretty bad, but they are starting to win some games now a little bit. And once they figure it out, I think they will be a better team than the Warriors too. So if you really dive deep into it, I think it was a great run with Clay, Draymond, all those guys. But I think they're gonna have to start unloading. This core is never gonna win a championship again. Because Clay's declining.
Oh yeah,
right now
you can see it.
This isn't a slump. This was going on a little bit last year too. He's on the decline too. One of the top 5 greatest shooters of all time. Klay Thompson's first ballot Hall of Famer. All that.
No,
right?
He deserves.
Draymond Green. I'm sorry, he's just not worth the headache anymore for what he brings to the table.
My man was choking out Rudy Gobert like this not too long ago.
And Andrew Wiggins has not been good either. So it's like, when are the Warriors going to unleash Jonathan Kuminga and let some of these younger guys like Moses Moody and other young talent that they have on this team to actually have some opportunities? I just think this Warriors team ain't it, and I don't think there's any moves they could somehow make to get this team significantly much better. So I think they're going to have to start unloading. That's just, they won't do it just for the respect they have out of Clay and Draymond. But my personal opinion, with Clay, Draymond, and Steph's phenomenal. He's still lights out. But the other two, they're not going to win another championship.
Yeah, I mean, Steph, look, I think the only guy that they're going to end up keeping out of everybody that's on their team right now is going to be Steph Curry. He's going to retire as a Warrior. I will just add, I don't like the Warriors. All right?
You don't.
And I really don't like the Warriors. And it makes me so happy to see them losing. But I do want to just say this real quick. I do respect their I respect their pedigree in terms of them winning all those championships. At the end of the day, I can't take those away. I might not like them because of just the vibe of the team. I don't know why. I just, ever since they won the first one, I actually wanted them to win that one. Yeah. Ever since then, I just didn't like the vibe of the team anymore. And I just think that they're still trying to hope that it can be the 2022 Magic again, where it's like they're gonna just get it back.
Yeah.
But I think a very big sign was how desperate they were to trade for Gary Payton II last year, because they had no defender on that team besides Andrew Wiggins. Because like you said, Klay Thompson can't play defense anymore. His shooting is pretty woeful at this point, where it's like he's not gonna have a lot of games where he's on. If he has that game where he's on, great. But yesterday when they played the Kings, he played solid in the first half. Second half, nothing. And a team like Sacramento, they're going to keep coming. They barely escaped last year beating them.
Oklahoma's on the rise.
OKC could beat them in a 7-game series, like you said.
I think they beat them.
I have no doubt in my mind. The only way the Warriors will win playoff games is if Steph Curry is dropping 50 points every game. That is the only way you're winning.
Took out a Game 7. I think the game was in Sacramento, right? Steph went for 50.
He had to, because And they barely won. It's not like they blew them out. Mm-hmm. They barely won. And that's going to be the thing with the Warriors. I think every win they get, it's because of this Herculean effort. So something that, like, I know LeBron was doing his last year in Cleveland, it's very similar to what Steph's doing right now in Golden State, where it's like, if he's not going off and he's not playing almost every minute, their plus-minus is horrendous.
That's bad.
Chris Paul, I know he was like this addition. People were like, oh, we really like this Chris Paul addition, right? And Dario Saric just brought some size. But Chris Paul is hurt right now. He's injury prone. Mm-hmm. This is the reality when you take on a 39-year-old point guard that has bad knees. And now you don't even have your backup point guard right now. What do you do and there's no more Bob Myers. Bob Myers is gone.
Yeah.
So now I get that, like, Joe Lacob's son is running the front office, and he has, like, credibility. Yeah. Like, he knows what he's doing. Yeah. But I think that at the end of the day, we're saying goodbye to the
I think this is a hypothetical. I believe why Bob Myers is not with the Warriors anymore is because I personally believe he wanted Jordan Poole to stay and wanted to kick out Draymond.
Probably.
But the Warriors ownership wasn't having it.
I think it's because if you side with Jordan Poole and you don't side with Draymond, who's helped you win 4 championships, you're never going to it will never get lived down, and you know Draymond will never, ever let that be lived down. I get it, but
at the same time, the direction of this team, if you really want to keep it at a buck, the direction of the team right now would have been better.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to an extent. I do think that part of it, I don't blame them for trading away Jordan Poole. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at him on Washington right now, same problems, you know. But I do agree in terms, if you're talking about youth and the ability to, like, be a guy that is like a microwave. Yeah. I mean, Draymond, look.
Jordan Poole was playing really well with Steph.
He
it was just the whole thing that happened before the season with Draymond. Unfortunately, someday, we'll never know how that even got released. Footage, but
somebody definitely wanted the end of the Warriors there, because whoever released that did not like them apparently.
Yeah.
Man, this is a good conversation, man. I always enjoy getting into this and just being able to talk more about hoops.
Yeah.
I know, guys, it's been a while. I know that there's been a lot of life events. There's been a lot of other things going on. So it's also why we haven't really been recording too much. Yeah. But we really do want to get back into it. We do still have our big special guest that will be coming on the podcast soon.
Yeah.
So please stay tuned for that. Continue to follow us on social media. Continue to share with friends and family. Anybody you think that would be enjoying a podcast during work, want to get into sports a little bit more. If you want to get into basketball a little bit more, listen to our podcast, because I'm telling you right now, we're not going to be just talking about LeBron and Steph and KD. We do try to talk about other teams because we want to give people more about basketball and not necessarily just about the superstars. So I just want to thank you guys again listening to the end of the episode. For Nick and myself, this is All Ball No Foul. Thank you. Have a good rest of your night, and we'll see you soon.